Okay.
When that trumpet sound, boy, you don't wanna miss out. Either in or you out, ain't no straddling the fence. Either in or you out, ain't no straddling the fence. Either in or you out, ain't no straddling the fence. Either in with the Lord or you out with the Lord. Either in or you out, ain't no straddling the fence. Either in or you out, ain't no straddling the fence. Either in or you out, ain't no straddling the fence. Either in with the Lord or you out.
Right. We on live, player, live, live.
All praises. Let me send you a couple of them. That's good. Shalom. Let me send these to you, Haki, just in case.
Yeah. We ain't got the videos, but we can talk about we got a script for all these floods, heat waves, earthquakes, tsunamis.
Yeah. I got Luke 21. We good, Aki?
Yeah.
All right. Well, Shabbat Shalom to the Mishpaka worldwide, to the 12 tribes. All praises for the Most High allowing us to make it to another Shabbat gathering. So, Toda Rabbah, everybody tuning in. We're going to go ahead and jump right into it. Like Aki said, as far as the current events go, we know that there's a lot of talk around volcanic eruption, earthquake activity. There was the earthquake in Russia that hit at an 8.8 magnitude, and it sent a tsunami warning all the way to Alaska and to Hawaii, and I believe the West Coast. And I didn't hear nothing else come out about that. But this just goes into show of this is what the Bible was talking about. So in the book of Luke, chapter 21, in the book of Luke, chapter 21, at verse 10, it reads, "And he said unto them, Nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom." We also see in that with Donald Trump redeploying the nuclear submarines, and he said just in case Russia is not being all the way honest, he's redeployed submarines in that region with nuclear capability. So this is just all going into that. Verse 11, "And great earthquakes shall be in diverse places." We see that happening, right? And people say, well, we've been seeing that for years, but we're seeing that more frequently and more frequently and more frequently. It says, "And famines and pestilences and fearful sights and great signs shall there be from Shamaim." And I was just talking to Ak about the object that is coming into the solar system, according to the scientists, that is an anomaly. So it is something that they have never seen this size approach so quickly into our solar system. And they said it came from the middle of the Milky Way galaxy. I'm just giving you the science, and it's distributed in strange colors that wouldn't be from a regular comet or asteroid, and it's supposed to be the closest to our sun, I believe, by like Mars, and it's supposed to approach right around the time of the Day of Atonement. So just a little bit into the current events on, some of the things that's happening worldwide and how we're able to, still after so many years be able to pull these things out of the scriptures. because that's the main thing. Somebody came about a week ago and asked, well, can you break down this Hebrew Israelite thing? And the only thing we can really tell them is about the prophecies, because the prophecies is what proves the scriptures to be true. It's a prophetic book. It's a prophetic manuscript. So it was written so long ago, like you don't have that type of book or information coming to you these days. Now you got novels, or you got tell-alls, or you got discoveries, but a book that's been able to predict things from the get-go, that's the power of the Most High. So all praises to the Most High. So as we gather here today, we're back at it with the oral traditions, and we're gonna keep going with part two. As last week we spoke about a variety of things. We spoke about how part of the oral traditions is just, as we read in Deuteronomy, sitting down with your family, um, rehearsing these things in the ears of your children and the ears of your loved ones. We do it all the time. There's certain stories in your family that are passed down from your great grandparents to your parents, and your parents are like, they're telling you the history of your family. All of this stuff isn't documented down. You might be able to go put up a family tree, but the family tree is not going to tell you all the details of that person's life. It's just going to tell you the lineage. So a lot of the things that you know about your family was passed down orally. So nothing has really changed from the beginning. When we look at the life of Noah, when we look at the life of Enoch, a lot of that was orally passed down. And so there's certain things that in these cultures they just knew because it was part of the culture. Like you might not write down every single thing about the style of today, right? But you know if that's in fashion or not. You say, oh man, that's played out. He's still wearing Jabot jeans. You see what I'm saying? So it's like certain things is just orally passed down and part of the culture. So that's but what we have here in front of us is we're actually going into the historical accounts of what people were saying and what they were saying during that time, those contemporaries of each other saying about each other. So at some point in time, a lot of things got whitewashed and a lot of things start being a lot watered down when it comes to the information because of the agenda to hide who certain people were, or the agenda for another certain people to bring themselves up to supremacy. There's things that was watered down or like scaled back, let's not talk about. But initially, when these people was making these discoveries, they were eager to get this information out there as accurate as possible because they was the first one on the scene. They were the news reporters at the time. So they had the best sources, firsthand experiences, or some text they might have came across. But you might see TMZ now, they're the first ones on the scene. So they got all the T, right? They got the T app. So back in the day, the historians and those who was traveling, they had the T and they wanted to get it out to you. But then people said, hey man, we got to scale back because it's gonna go against their agenda, and they just simply can't have that. So we're gonna jump back into it. You want to pull them slides up, Aki? We left off in the book of Ola Uda Equiano, who was from the Igbo tribe in Africa, in West Coast Africa, and he is giving his autobiography of his life. And he starts off his autobiography in his home village, and he's speaking about the customs and the mannerisms of his people. And he's telling us, what life was to him before he was taken into captivity by the white man. So, this is a firsthand account of somebody who actually lived it, because we're descendants of slaves, but we didn't live slavery as they did. We go through a different type of bondage, right? We go through systematic bondage. But this man actually went through physical captivity. He actually lived through before a period of time of captivity, so he could explain what it was like just in its natural environment, just like in the movie Roots. If you watch the movie Roots or the series, you see Kunta Kinte, what's his name? Kunta Kinte. You see Kunta Kinte going through his normal, cultural life. So at first they was living in a certain state of peace. They had their own uh their own hardships they had to get through. First Kunta Kinte start off going going through the rites and the rituals of manhood according to his tribe. They was worried about tribal things, and there were certain things that their elders were teaching them and setting them on quest to do. Then all of a sudden we see the slave captor come into the picture, and that changed the whole dynamic. So I liken that to the life of Ola Uda Equiano, because they wasn't living in captivity. They wasn't living in a state of fear or anything like that to this degree. They were just living their life in a cultural sense. And then we see when they go into captivity, everything changed. So we're gonna just pick back up. We went through some of this. Let's see what page we on, Aki. So I believe we ended off. I know we talked about on page 6 when it said, before we taste food, we always wash our hands. Indeed, our cleanliness on all occasions in extreme. I know we read that. Let's jump back on page 7, Aki. Um, so it has, you might be able to see it at the top. Yep, this is the page. So right there. So we'll just jump back into it and start getting back the account of how it was in his natural setting. It says, these are sometimes visited by stout mahogany colored men from the southwest of us. We call them Oi Igbo, which term signifies red men living at a distance. They generally bring us firearms, gunpowder, hats, beads, and dried fish. The last we esteemed a great rarity, as our waters were only brooks and springs. These articles they barter with us for odoriferous woods and earth. And our salt of wood ashes, they always carry slaves through our land, but the strictest account is exacted of their manner of procuring them before they are suffered to pass. I'm gonna jump down to some of this highlighted. I'm gonna start at the beginning of this paragraph that's not highlighted. It says, our land is uncommonly rich and fruitful and produces all kinds of vegetables in great abundance. We have plenty of Indian corn and vast quantities of cotton and tobacco. Our pineapples grow without culture, so they just have wild pineapple growing. They are about the size of the largest sugar loaf and finely flavored. And I know some folks that just came back from the land, and they said when they eat the pineapple is sweet, but it's a different type of sweetness. They say it's a little more fresh, a little more pure than what we eat over here. It seems some type tampered with. It says, we have also spices of different kinds, particularly pepper and a variety of delicious fruits, which I have never seen in Europe, together with gums of various kinds and honey in abundance. All our industry is exerted to improve those blessings of nature. Agriculture is our chief employment, and everyone, even the children and women, are engaged in it. It says, thus, we are all habituated to labor from our earliest years. Everyone contributes something to the common stock. So they wasn't no lazy people, right? And they was reared up in the house since childhood to give their contribution to the agriculture and to the survival of the tribe. It says, and as we are unacquainted with idleness, we have no beggars. So they didn't just have a whole bunch of poor folks running around. The benefits of such a mode of living are obvious. The West India planters prefer the slaves of Benin or Igbo to those of any other part of Guinea for their hardiness, intelligence, integrity, and zeal. Those benefits are felt by us in general healthiness of the people and in their vigor and activity. I might have added too in their comeliness. So they said they was very attractive looking people. They was very attractive looking people. Shabbat shalom. It's a yes, it's a I remember while in Africa to have seen 3 Negro children who were tawny and another quite white, who were universally regarded by myself and the natives in general as far as related to their complexions as deformed. So I think we spoke about this last week. It was different to see somebody of lighter complexion, right? It says our women too were in my eyes at least uncommonly graceful, alert, and modest to a degree of bashfulness. So there was modest women. Nor do I remember to ever to have ever heard of any instance of incontinence among them before marriage. They are also remarkably cheerful. Indeed, cheerfulness and affability are 2 of the leading characteristics of our nation. I think we went through many of these precepts on page 8. I'm going to pick up. I am going to pick up on page 9 at the highlight. Page 9. And then we're going to go to Genesis 17 and 14. Genesis chapter 17 and 14, brother sheet. 17. I'll hit this Bereshit first. So this is the book of Bereshit, chapter 17 and at 14. We could really start at 9. We could start at verse 9. Bereshit chapter 17 at verse 9. All right. And it reads, and Elohim said to Al Abraham, you shall guard my covenant, therefore, you and your seed after you in their generations. So he didn't just speak to Abraham. He told Abraham, hey, you're going to also do this with your seed after you in their generation. So their generations should continue to do this. Verse 10, this is my covenant which ye shall guard between me and your seed after you. Every male child among you shall be circumcised. So this is a covenant between the Hebrew people and Yahuwah. This is a covenant between the Hebrew people and Yahuwah. And notice it's telling Abraham his seed. So one thing about it is there are different type of Hebrews, right? Edomite is also a Hebrew, correct? But they're not Hebrew Israelites. But this is what Yahuwah told Abraham. He said, this is going to be carried on through your generations. So Hebrews are to be circumcised. It said, "This is my covenant which ye shall guard between me and you and your seed after you. Every male child among you shall be circumcised, and ye shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a sign of the covenant betwixt me and you. And he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you. Every man child in your generations, he that is born in the house or brought with money of any stranger, which is not of your seed." So you could also buy somebody into your house that's not of your seed, that is a stranger, but they shall also partake in this practice for them to be considered amongst your house. He that is born in your house and he that is bought with your money must need to be circumcised, and my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. And the uncircumcised male whose flesh of his foreskin is not circumcised, that soul shall be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. So back in Ola Uda, we see, you want to pull that up, back on page 9 of Ola Uda, he said, "We practiced circumcision like the Jews." So we just read where the practice of circumcision came from. And keep in mind, these people didn't have no Bible. So everything they was doing, they were doing these things already. And this was just their oral traditions passed down from generation to generation. So they didn't have to read this to do this. It says, "We practice circumcision like the Jews and made offerings and feasts on that occasion in the same manner as they did. Like them, also our children were named from some event, some circumstance, or fancy foreboding at the time of their birth." So that is something that we see a lot of times in the scripture, right? We'll see. I'm on page 9 at this highlighted part, and it's got the precept next to it, Genesis 17 and 14. So we see this happen many times in the scripture. We see you know, we see Shemshun or Samson. They'll say, the Malak could come and say, "Hey, his name is going to be this. He's going to do this for his people." Even with the birth of Mashiach, they said, "Hey, he's going to be Emmanuel," translated to Elohim is with us. So these people was named things according to what was, spoken of that would be their character. That's why names are very important. You want to be little sticky fingers, but you probably a kleptomaniac because you got that name on you. So, that is a custom that is just part of our culture and was, part of this man's culture as well. So he's saying, this was just life. We were circumcised. We was named after some type of event or something that was foretold that was going to happen to us. It says, "I was named Ola Uda," which in our language signifies vicissitude or fortune, also one favor and having a loud voice and well spoken. I remember we never polluted the name of the object of our adoration. On the contrary, it was always mentioned with great reverence, and we were totally unacquainted with swearing. Is that they had a clean speech, and all those terms of abuse and reproach which find their way so readily and copiously into the languages of more civilized people. The only expression of that kind I remember were "may you rot," or "may you swell," or "may a beast take you." So that was like cussing somebody out in his village. Man, may a grizzly bear come out and grab you up. They was putting curses on you. And we also see that in the scripture, right?
Yeah, with the short life.
Yeah, in the book of Kings, it was I believe Elijah or Elisha. I believe it was Elisha. Uh, they was mocking him. They said, "Go up, you bald head! Go up, you bald head!" And he said, "I curse you in the name of Yahuwah." And a she bear came out and mauled the youths. So we're just we're connecting the dots, y'all. We're connecting the dots. Here it say, I have before remarked that the natives of this part of Africa are extremely cleanly. This necessary habit of decency was with us a part of religion, and therefore we had many purifications and washings, indeed almost as many, and used on the same occasions, if my recollection does not fail me, as the Jews. Those that touched the dead at any time were obliged to wash and purify themselves before they could enter a dwelling house. So let's go to the book of Numbers 19 and 11. Numbers 19 and at verse 11. Y'all there? Okay. I'm going to read that part one more time. It says, I have before remarked that the natives of this part of Africa are extremely cleanly. This necessary habit of decency was with us a part of religion, and therefore we had many purifications and washings, indeed almost as many, and used on the same occasions, if my recollection does not fail me, as the Jews. Those that touched the dead at any time were obliged to wash and purify themselves before they could enter a dwelling house. We at verse uh, 11. It reads, He that touches the dead body of any man shall be unclean 7 days. He shall purify himself with it on the third day. And on the seventh day he shall be clean. But if he purify not himself the third day, then the seventh day he shall not be clean. Whosoever touches the dead body of any man that is dead and purifies not himself defiles the tabernacle of Yahuwah, and that soul shall be cut off from Yasharal, because the water of separation was not sprinkled upon him. He shall be unclean. His uncleanness is yet upon him. This is the Torah. When a man dies in a tent, all that come into the tent and all that is in the tent shall be unclean 7 days. And every open vessel which has no covering bound upon it is unclean. And whosoever touches one that is slain with a sword in the open fields, or a dead body, or a bone of a man, or a grave, shall be unclean 7 days. And for an unclean person, they shall take of the ashes of the burnt heifer of purification for sins, and running water shall be put there too in a vessel, and a clean person shall take hyssop and dip it in the water and sprinkle it upon the tent and upon the vessels and upon the persons that were there, and upon him that touched a bone, or one slain, or one dead, or a grave. And the clean person shall sprinkle upon the unclean on the third day, and on the seventh day, and on the seventh day he shall purify himself and wash his clothes and bathe himself in water, and shall be clean at evening. So we're just looking at the Torah of defilement of a dead body and how it can defile us, and Ola Uda's testimony being that they had customs of the same or very similar to that of what we're reading here in the scriptures. So he goes on in Ola Uda to say those that touched the dead body at any time were obliged to wash and purify themselves before they could enter a dwelling house. Every woman, too, at certain times was forbidden to come into a dwelling house. We're going to go to Leviticus 15 and 19. So now he's speaking about the women. Leviticus 15 and 19. It says, every woman, too, at certain times was forbidden to come into a dwelling house or touch any person or anything we ate. 15 and 19 in Leviticus, it says, and if a woman have an issue and her issue in the flesh be blood, she shall be put away 7 days. And whosoever touches her shall be unclean until the evening. And everything that she lies upon in her separation shall be unclean. Everything also that she sits upon shall be unclean. And whosoever touches her bed shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the evening. And whosoever touches anything that she sat upon shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the evening. And if it be on her bed or on anything whereon she sits, when he touches it, he shall be unclean until the evening. And if any man lie with her at all, and her flower be upon him, he shall be unclean 7 days. And all the bed whereon he lies shall be unclean. And if a woman have an issue of blood many days out of the time of her separation, or if it run beyond the time of her separation, all the days of the issue of her uncleanness shall be as the days of her separation, she shall be unclean. So this go to show you the woman that had an issue of blood dealing with the time of the Mashiach, why she was so grieved. She's like, I can't even assemble. She's got a long running issue of blood. But we see here, Ola Uda, they had the same custom. They had the same custom. It says here, though, he said, I was so fond of my mother, I could not keep from her. So he said he didn't care about it. He was running around unclean because he was with his mom. He said, or avoid touching her at some of those periods, in consequence of which I was obliged to be kept out with her. So he was with her because he was considered unclean. It says, in a little house made for that purpose. They even had their own separation house till offering was made, and then we were purified. So it's a lot of similarities and connections here with this Igbo tribe and the scriptures, and they did not have no Bible. So this was all just orally handed down from their chiefs and from their priests, so to speak. And I think that's what we're going into now. It's the next paragraph. It says, though we had no place of public worship, we had priests and magicians or wise men. I do not remember whether they had different offices or whether they were united in the same purpose, but they were held in great reverence by the people. They calculated our time and foretold events as their name imported, for we called them Afo Waika, which signifies calculations or yearly men, our year being called Afo. They wore beards, and when they died, they were succeeded by their sons. We in Leviticus, we could go to 19 and 27. 19 and 27. And it reads, ye shall not round the corners of your heads, neither shall you mar the corners of your beard. Ye shall not make any cuttings in your flesh for the dead, nor print any marks upon you. I am Yahuwah. So I don't know if they make marks on them in this Igbo tribe, but we know that we got so many connections and similarities here that it's kind of uncanny, right? we do know that a lot of African tribes make marks on themselves, but we also know that the influence from these other nations and just the wicked heart of men in general, uh, you know, kind of influences us to move into other people's culture. Like most of us got tattoos on us, right? We didn't learn that from the scriptures. We learned that from the culture. So just because we see a few All right, so we just see all them connections, right? So when we hear about can you go to the next book? I think it's a Baramba. I think I got it on me. So we just see all those connections from one man's life. You're gonna have to tell me the pages because I don't have it highlighted. But also we see like the influence from outside culture seep in through the traditions of men. So it's the same thing that we're going through. We are on a path, right? We're walking this thing out. We're doing this, and then here come a tradition of man. That's the same thing that the Mashiach was going against. He was telling you, hey, look, keep the Torah. You don't have to worry about the traditions of men, but with the oral traditions, that's just something that's gonna have to be. You gotta have to be aware of that, right? Everything that somebody tell you ain't true, but it might have been kept by them people, but that don't make it right. Our forefathers, just from slavery here, we got a lot of folklore and a lot of superstition. That don't mean it's necessarily right, but then also we got a lot of things that are correct. So that come with just the sifting and study. Where we starting off at? Okay, chapter 4.
Chapter 4, and then you gotta highlight that at
Okay.
the bottom.
Get a little bit of understanding. All right, yeah, let's read the beginning of this. This is the book Baramba, and it says this at chapter 4. The Baramba tribe of nearly 1.5 million people live today in the Republic of Mali, which is north of the Ivory Coast. No one knows for sure from where and when the tribe reached its present location. So that's another thing. Uh, nobody talks about the migration into the land of these Africans. Everybody's just like, oh, this is really Mount Zion. This is Mount Kilimanjaro. You see what I'm saying? But nobody talks about where these people came from. So he said it is not clearly known where its former location was. It is generally believed that before the tribe settled in the Odiene region of the Ivory Coast, the tribe immigrated from its permanent residence at an uncertain time a few hundred years ago and settled down in an area that is now called the Republic of Mali. We first hear about the existence of Baramba tribe in the 16th century when I fought with the Pula tribes, or when it fought with the Pula tribes against an Arab army from Morocco that invaded the area of the Niger River. After this war, the Baramba tribe disappeared from the African political arena, and for a long time, no one heard anything about them. In the 18th century, they emerged again from hiding as a strong and well organized military force. They fought against Arab and Muslim tribes, which were based in central Mali and were engaged in slave trading. When I started to learn the Baramba language, I was interested in their religious customs as well. To my great surprise, I discovered that throughout some members of the Barama tribe took upon themselves the religion of Islam, the vast majority continued to maintain and practice its traditional customs, and these customs have a remarkable resemblance to some of the traditional Jewish customs. So here's a whole nother tribe with some Jewish customs. A newborn boy receives his name on the 8th day of his birth, and if he is the firstborn, he is his father must redeem him from the chief of the tribe by making a small donation of 100 coconuts, and it fits perfectly to the writing in the book of Numbers 18 and 16. And they got it cited here. It says, and their redemption price at a month old no demon, lest it be an evil one, could want to do them harm anyway. He said, and they teach that no demon, lest it be an evil one, could want to do them harm anyway. And they are quite insistent on the efficiency of the name. So that's an early belief. So like one thing about it is now, I mean, everybody waking up, everybody coming to their different camps and things like that. But people say it don't matter what you call them, just call them something. But is that what the early believer said? Not according to Celsus' view on how he was picking us apart. He's like, man, they're very insistent on the pronunciation of the name. He said, and they are quite insistent on the efficiency of the name as a means of protection. Pronounce it improperly, they say, and it is ineffective. And check this out. He said, Greek and Latin will not do. It must be said in a barbarian tongue to work. And when they say barbarian, they're talking about the Hebrew language. So, these are just some of the accounts of what people said about us, right? Not us going in hyping ourselves up, not us making this thing out to be super, but this is how they took it. So this is a Greek historian, philosopher, whatever, and he's like, man, I can't stand these Hebrews. I can't stand these early believers. They call them Christians. But what I showed with the Eodanis is because when you read these memoirs and things, these are translations, right? So this is a translation of something else. This is a translation from Greek. When they translated it from Greek, it was Eodanis, right? With anytime they would speak about the Jew, they never would have said Jew if they and some of these names, right? They wouldn't have said these. They wouldn't have been Jonathan. They wouldn't have been Isaiah. In their translation, Isaiah. It wouldn't even been Jesus. In their translation, Jesus. So, all I'm trying to employ is this. Elevate to the level that your words is life and death in the power of the tongue, or death and life is in the power of the tongue, right? And we're not supposed to be speaking these names like that. So let's just move away from it. Move away from these names. If you're gonna be Hebrewing, be Hebrewing. Which is not even Hebrew. It's really not Hebrew. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes, we do get caught up in it's easier just to say Hebrew, but it's the Abri. It's the Abri. And we get these from the characters that make these words. It's not a Jew, it's a Yahudi, right? Yahudi from Yahuwah. And a lot of these things will just continuously connect you back to the source and back to the Father. So, unless anybody got anything else to bring out, that's all I really got to bring out. Any edification, anything anybody else got?
Yeah, I think you got to do the whole lesson over again.
Let's go. Well, if they couldn't hear it, we might have to just run it back, and it'll give us time to kind of tighten up on some more slides. Yeah.
I don't remember exactly verbatim, but he said that we're all important. Plainness of speech.
Uh-huh.
That kind of be all important in what we say.
Second Corinthians. You said 2 Corinthians 3?
12 to 14.
12 through 14. Second, I'm in second. Second, 4, 3. It was a portion that was on there, but it was off, but it cut off.
You said 2 Corinthians 12.
Mm-hmm.
2 Corinthians chapter 3.
At verse 12. It says, seeing then that we have such hope, we use great plainness of speech, and not as Moses, which put a veil over his face, that the children of Yasharal could not steadfastly look to the end of that which is abolished. Just that part right there. But their minds were blinded, for until this day remaineth the same veil, untaken away in the reading of the Old Testament, which veil is done away in Mashiach. You want to expound on that? I know the plainness of speech is basically let your yeah be yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of but their minds were blinded. And then the Moses in the veil when he was talking to the Most High, his face was shining.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, we can't take it. Like, we can't look at you. It's like they are.
Yeah.
So they asked him from his face.
They want you to dumb it down.
Right. So basically, he's saying that, but their minds were blinded. People were basically in captivity. I guess, right? But the Son says free is free indeed. So the veil is done away with in Hamashiach. He said, if we, in the reading of the Old Testament, the same veil is again. But their minds were blinded, for until this day remaineth the same veil untaken away in the reading of the Old Testament. So he's saying that just like the veil was over Moses' face, and the same veil is over the reading of the Old Testament. But it is done away in Christ.
He came and showed it.
So when we have Christ, then we're able to see it clearly.
Mm-hmm.
We're able to withstand the glory.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay, yeah. All praises. Yeah, that's a simple. It looks simple reading it, but you like dang, you got to break that down a little. You feel me?
And the book was written to us, by us, for us, from us. We can be the only ones who said, surely if he does nothing else, he will reveal his secrets to the church.
Mm-hmm.
And these white people have had these books for years. Me, I ain't had that long.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I can touch it and find things people.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can do that. You can do the weave.
Mm-hmm.
It's
All praise.
not for
Just like her let said. It ain't for everybody. Well, all praises, y'all, man. If y'all can hear us out there, man, Shabbat Shalom. Y'all have a good one.
Yeah, no, I figured Art needed the book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can't take you off the screen.
Oh, okay. Well, all praises to the Most High, man. Most High willing, y'all got something out of that. We'll run it back, Most High willing. But Shabbat Shalom to the Mishpaka, 12 tribes worldwide. Shabbat Shalom. Oh, okay. Let's get it. Let me see what I can do. My lips is wet. Shabbat Shalom. Do your thing, huh?